Welcome to another episode of the Meal Prep Monday podcast. I'm your host and founder of Prep Dish, Allison Schaaf. We're back today with another interview, this time with Michelle Dudash. We are talking flavor with meals and also just a lot of tips and tricks for getting healthy, delicious meals on the table. Before we get into the episode, a reminder, speaking of quick and easy, healthy, tasty meals, if you have not tried out our meal plans at Prep Dish, we have a free trial set up at prepdish.com/MPM, short for Meal Prep Monday, and that they hit all the marks that I was just talking about. They add flavor, they're healthy and delicious. Your whole family is going to enjoy them. But most importantly, the goal with the meal plans is to make mealtime as efficient as possible. We give you the plan so everything's done in advance. By the time it's 5 or 6 o'clock at night, you know what you're having for dinner. It's quick and easy to get on the table, and your whole family is going to enjoy it. If you have not tried them out, the best way to see if it's a fit is just give it a try for free for 2 weeks and see how it goes. So again, that's prepdish.com/MPM. So for today's episode, really excited to talk to Michelle. We talk about it a little bit, but I've known her for years. She also has a similar background as starting out as a private chef and also being a dietitian. So I remember years ago when I was first starting out with my personal chef business, I reached out to Michelle to get some help on how to, do that work, and have just loved seeing her career evolve in a not similar way as me, but just evolve into so many cool things. She's written cookbooks. She has this spice mix line. We're going to talk about that in the episode, but she sent me a lot of the mixes beforehand, and I gotta say, they're so delicious, really clean ingredient labels. There's a sloppy Joe mix that I loved. The chili one was really good, and it's really hard to find a spice mix packet for chili that has a clean ingredients list. So all of her spice mixes get my stamp of approval. We tried them out here at my house. They're great. So I'll make sure and have that linked in the show notes if you want to try those out. Trying to think what else. I don't know. It's a really good episode. I just love all of her philosophies around food. We get into, salting foods, adding flavor, and really interesting to hear her perspective on everything. So let's head into the episode with Michelle Dudash. Welcome back to Meal Prep Monday. I am excited to be here today with Michelle Dudash. She, interestingly, we have a very similar background. She is also a dietitian and has a background as a personal chef. She was also a mentor to me and helped me when I was first starting out. There's only so many of us out there that have combined, the chef and dietitian roles. So I remember years ago reaching out to her and telling her what I wanted to do, and she really stepped in and helped me as I figured out my path. But excited to catch up with her today and hear what she has been up to. Michelle, thank you for being here. Please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
It's so great to be here, Allison. Oh my gosh. What a journey you've been on.
Yes.
It's awesome to see what you're doing.
Thank you.
So as just like you, registered dietitian, chef, I've done a lot. I've worked in all the way from working in restaurants, front of house, back of house, culinary degree, fine dining, private, personal chef. And today I'm a cookbook author. I have a seasoning mix line. I do a lot of media work on television with recipes and writing for different publications. And just, helping people find solutions. I think that's what it's all about for me, is helping people get delicious, nourishing meals on the table that hopefully their whole family will want to eat, because then we're winning. And also in a small amount of time. I used to cook fine dining, and of course, but I still remember after I had my baby, I was like, I don't even know what to make because I don't have time.
Yes.
So that's literally when I started retooling how I cook. I call myself the weeknight chef, and I call my husband, who's not actually a chef, the weekend chef. He likes all the dishes and the things. And I'm like, one pot, one thing, 20 minutes. Here we go.
Great. And how old are your kids now?
I have a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old. It's like I forgot my homework. Here, so for the people, yeah, here, I'll show this up to you here. My daughter,
Aw.
Scarlett, here's a picture of Stella. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
And so I really want to talk about the spices, but before we do, why don't we just talk about the two books you have out? And it's so similar. I feel like our paths of like we're trying to get at the same solution and just giving people all of these great tools. So first, share a little bit about the cookbooks that you have written.
yeah, so my first book, Clean Eating for Busy Families, the
Mhm.
initial one came out in a little over 10 years ago. And that was literally what I mentioned just about how that's literally when the cookbook idea struck me after I had the
Mhm.
baby.
Mhm.
And I was like, I need to create recipes that are simple and streamlined. And it's because I know I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And so it's really just whole food ingredients, nourishing ingredients. Of course, I use packaged foods as well that have simple ingredients.
Mhm.
And so it's and things that will be appealing to most kids,
Mhm.
most families. And there's all sorts of proteins. There's a vegetarian chapter. So anyway, so then fast forward 10 years, my publisher approached me to write the revised and expanded version of Clean Eating for Busy Families. And this was actually really fun. Okay, so there's my second child is not on this book cover a decade later. And this was fun because I got to, you add another kid into the mix.
Mhm.
I'm like, I have even less time. So
Right.
I went through every single recipe, streamlined it even more. And also 10 years later, you realize there were ingredients. Like, do you remember when almond flour was like hard to find? You have
Yeah.
to specialty market. And now it's
Every
almost everywhere. So I was able to, add in some things that were easier to find. I over the years, I've learned what people want to see in recipes and what they don't want to see in recipes. And so I was able to fix that, like things that oils that people are more interested in now, just certain ingredients. And so it was really fun. I added more recipes, more images. Of course, people love pictures. We all love pictures. Yeah,
Yep.
so it was fun. So that's the first book.
Wait, before we go on, you said that you streamlined, so I'm guessing there's some things you did too to like speed up the recipes. Are there any tricks that you were like, okay, if I can just go in and tweak these recipes that it made it faster?
Yes. Okay, so here's a specific example
Yeah.
that so when I was a private chef, I made my boss loved um chicken parmesan.
Uh-huh.
And of course, I would layer spinach in there, and that's a great way to add in a vegetable. So my recipe was like a little wonky,
Yeah.
and there were a few pans involved. And so for the second edition, I went back and I turned it into a one pan chicken parmesan, and so much faster, so much more streamlined. I
Yeah.
still had a little bit of the 5-star line chef mentality when I wrote the first book. So
Hmm.
like here is the second one. It's so beautiful, one pan. And you know what? Even if your kids don't eat spinach, that's okay. You just don't put spinach on their chicken. They can still eat the same meal as
Yeah.
everybody else.
Yeah.
By the way, like my kids, they would not eat spinach, but they love this dish. So that's like one example. And I think I use like a whole grain flour on the
Mhm.
first edition for
Mhm.
the chicken.
Yep.
Second edition, I also gave an option for almond flour.
Okay. Yep.
I learned that a lot of people, whether they're eating gluten-free or for whatever reason, they don't
Mhm.
want whole grain flour, I gave more options like that.
Well, I love the cutting it down to one pan. I feel like that's something here at Prep Dish even. So we have someone else that creates the recipes, but I will test some of them. And that's something where I'm always like, we don't need two. Like I'm always trying to figure out, can we make this in one pan and not two? Because I am the queen of like, let's have as few dirty dishes as possible. Because all of those things over time, it, adds up. So
It certainly does. It really does add up. I agree.
great.
That's
So
always my goal in life, one pan.
I know, right? So you did the cookbooks. But now talk a little bit. You have these spice blends now, and first let me say, you sent me some of them before this episode, and thank you so much. They're amazing. I'm always on the lookout for spice blends that don't have all of the added gunk, and they were delicious, made dinner time so easy. But what was your process behind that? And what was the inspiration?
Yeah, so I was literally cooking dinner one night and I was using a taco packet that many of us have used before in our lives throughout our childhood, or maybe your mom used it. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is so easy. My kids love it. Our whole family loves it. One pan, I have my protein, boom, it's ready in 15 minutes. But I felt like a little embarrassed, like a little like, oh my gosh, I'm using this packet. The first ingredient is salt. The second ingredient is sugar, filler, filler, filler. I was like, this is terrible. I should not be using this. So I thought, oh, I'm the one to create wholesome, real food ingredient spice packets for people. Because as a chef, we love adding herbs and spices. We know that adds so much flavor, takes any piece of protein to the next level or 2 levels or 3 levels. But I know as a recipe writer, people do not want to see 10 more ingredients that they have to buy and pull out of their cabinet. So the first flavor I launched was taco. I launched with 4 flavors, but taco was literally the first one I launched. People tell me when they try this taco packet, they do not go back to the other one.
Yeah.
So, and I also put minced onions in a lot of my packets. So you're not even chopping onions. I have to tell you, this is so funny. You know, as a chef, we know onions. That's like one of the main ingredients you always have on hand.
Yes.
I don't even buy onions anymore. It's very rare. Okay, I did buy some for like some special dish I'm bringing for something, but other than that, I don't even keep onions on it because I put minced onions. They're wholesome, just minced onions. That's it. Yep. And then the person at home, they don't have to chop it if they don't want to, you know? So same thing for like, this is so funny, like garlic, like my husband made, babe, do we have any garlic? I'm like, no, I only use my spice packets now. So it's just really, it's all in there. They're very complete. And, you know, seasoning I've learned is a mystery for a lot of people. They're not sure which spice to put with which ingredient. I've literally given talks on that to people. And that's fine. That's where I come in. I'd much rather you use a spice packet and a couple, you know, just your protein, maybe a veg, than having to rely on takeout all the time or having to rely on, you know, whatever convenience food. I think they're just so easy. And you're like, oh, okay, I can handle this. I have 20 minutes and 1 pan.
And I would like to hear from you on this. This is something I've talked about, actually, I think more than once, because one of my recipe editors, she's also a chef and dietitian. She's like, you've got to talk to people about salt, because we give them these recipes and set them loose. And sometimes we'll put, you know, season to taste. And honestly, our concern is that people are going to undersalt when they're cooking from scratch. Yeah. So talk a little bit about how you approach salt with these seasoning mixes and also just in your cooking. It's such an interesting journey I've been on with salt, right? First, I was a dietitian and I didn't really know much about cooking. Yeah. And then I went to culinary school. Literally the first thing they teach you is salt until threshold, until right before it gets too salty. But then I learned to tailor that back, take it back a few notches as a private chef, because my employer wanted low sodium. And so I adjusted my taste buds back to like normal people's salt threshold. And so when it comes, and then as a cookbook author, you know, my publisher, and I think a lot of people, they want to see the sodium content. And so I really learned how to maximize the least amount of salt, because people don't want to see 1,000 milligrams of sodium in their recipe. A lot of people be like, what? Their eyeballs will literally pop out of their head. So I have learned season at the end of cooking, the opposite of what we learn in cooking school. Season just on the surface. So it hits your taste buds. Yes.
But doesn't have to be a lot. Also using acids, using lots of herbs and spices. That helps you reduce So you're not flavoring with salt, you're flavoring with low sodium ingredients that are naturally low sodium. So yes, will you find sea salt in these? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Salt, a small amount, brings out the flavor in food. And as a chef, I will guide you and basically season your food for you. So I put about, I would say there's about 1/4 teaspoon in most of my packets.
Okay.
And my recipes, like that's kind of like a rule of thumb. I find 1/4 teaspoon for a recipe. I mean, granted, sometimes I do want to add more salt, but but that's on me. That's in my household. But you at home, if you want to keep your salt even lower, you can do that. But 1/4 teaspoon is a pretty good rule of thumb for about 4 servings of food. To keep the flavors, bring out the flavors, but keep the sodium moderate.
No, I agree. I'm a fan of salt, and I think it's just, and I think that's something when people first get in the kitchen that you have to explore and have to, get in the habit of tasting your food as you go along and just figure out what the right balance is for you and your family. So
absolutely. And another thing that people are really surprised by in my packets, like for example, the sloppy Joe, I have you add, I found most people have some sort of vinegar in their house, right? And as chefs, we love just that little bit of acid, whether it's vinegar or lemon or lime or orange or whatever. But that's another secret ingredient of chefs that most people don't know. They don't realize just that touch of acid can take the dish to the next level, where you're like, well, why does my food never turn out like a restaurant? Well, one could be you're not adding that acid to balance the taste. So I teach people on the packets, like some of them do have you add just a little bit of apple cider vinegar or whatever vinegar you have, and it makes it pop.
No, I mean, the acid, that is such a good trick. And I'm such a fan of even the lime juice on the side of most soups. And you can kind of go from a chili to something Asian or whatever. And if you add that lime juice on the side, it just really gives it that pop of flavor.
Yes. So and the cool thing with vinegar never goes bad, right? So it's not like some things where you buy it and then you're like a year later throwing it out and feeling, oh no, I don't use that. Vinegar literally lasts forever in your pantry. It might change the color, etc., but it is still good. So vinegars are a great little thing to keep in your arsenal, as you know, and just to add just that pop.
Great. So I'm curious what other tips and tricks you have for busy families out there that are looking to, get healthy food on the table. What things have you learned in creating this or your cookbooks?
I really listen to my kids. I mean, do they eat every single thing I make? No. Did I do all the quote unquote right things raising them that we read about as new parents to expand their taste buds? Yes, I did. And they ate everything for a period of time, and then they grow into their own and they make their own choices. So you can't force kids. I just try to lean in to their, they like chicken. I know they love chicken. I know they love ground beef. So I really try to build healthy, and they need their iron. That's one way that kids can get their iron. So I really just try to lean into some of their favorites, but that all of us will eat. I really when I know, my kids are 10 and 14, so we're busy at night, there's sports and things. So when I know when there's a family meal around the table that we'll all be sitting, I really focus on a dish that, like taco night, for example, that we'll all get to eat. And they might put theirs, you can still, I think having the same protein is a huge first step. And then from there, my husband, maybe he puts his in a one type of tortilla shell. I might use something else. Like you can customize. Kids can add their toppings. My 14-year-old loves avocado, so that's amazing. So that's definitely a thing. I mentioned the chicken parmesan. That's okay if your kid, don't try to force your kids to eat spinach. The 1-bite rule did not work in our household. It led, you hear about some people like the one bite rule. That did not work. I did not. It was awful. So I don't have the no thank you bite in my household. I try to offer and you move on. I just try to keep that whole dinner table experience as positive as possible.
Yeah, I found when they say, oh, I don't want that, then I'm like, oh, that's okay.
And when I say it like that and then just kind of don't pay attention, by the end of the meal, they actually try it. So instead of telling them like, okay, just don't eat it if you don't like it. And then they watch everyone else eating it. And 9 times out of 10, by the end of the meal, they've at least like tried it if I just don't pay attention.
Exactly. And it's like, for the young parents listening, it's like if you feel like your child is picky now, they do, hopefully most of them, I think, come around eventually.
Yeah.
They want to make their own decisions. They want to eat like their friends.
Yeah.
They want
to be able to say they don't like something and for you to just respect that. So I just be like, that's fine. You don't have to like it. This is what we're having. And if you don't want to eat that particular thing, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So I try to, I've given presentations of like the top 10 recipes that hopefully everyone in your family will eat. And the moms are all like, like, because I've just learned, and of course, every child is different. I get people that will tell me, moms will be like, my child loves your ramen, and I think that's amazing. I'm jealous, but, you lean into, when you see those cues from your kids, lean into those.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to ask the question now, because I feel like people are going to want to hear this, but knowing that one thing I always say is one kid's going to love asparagus and the other kid's going to love broccoli, and it's so different. But are there some, dishes or foods that you've found are something that are more on the lines of kid friendly?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll make another one. It's a spaghetti meat sauce recipe. I actually have a seasoning mix for that too. It's my marinara seasoning mix. And it has, again, everything is in there. I use ground beef, but if you want to use ground turkey, you can do that. And you add your big can of crushed tomatoes. And that is a family favorite. Everyone loves that. And there's so many things you can do with that too. Lasagna, another family favorite. I mentioned tacos. Also, anything chicken, I swear, like my kids, it could be chicken. If I'm making chicken, anything chicken, they will probably want to eat that. So I think whether it's chicken thighs, chicken breasts, whole roasted chicken, grilled chicken, that is just something my kids love. And then they're also leaning into steak, which actually I was really happy about. And so that's easy.
Yes.
Yeah, that's easy to build around. Kids can be fun. Like one of my children is kind of funny about, just with me, I think ground beef is like an easy thing for kids, that a lot of kids love. But then she started finally eating steak and we're like, okay, now we're talking.
Right.
Then you add all your, different sides that your family enjoys, and it's great. So those are definitely some favorites. Oh, there's another one that they love. It's kind of similar flavors, but again, it's like a whole different type of meal.
Yeah.
I call them meatball cupcakes.
Oh, see, I like sometimes it's all in the naming.
Yes. It's basically a turkey meatloaf put into a muffin tin, topped with marinara and baked.
Wonderful. Yeah.
It's awesome. And my daughter, my 14-year-old, even makes it now.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's like so healthy. It's so yummy, so easy. And again, it can go with so many things: pasta, potatoes.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank. So those are definitely some of the repeats in my house.
Great ideas. Well, Michelle, this has been wonderful. We could just keep talking on and on and on, but let's wrap up here. And do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Oh gosh, I think just cooking healthy and nutritiously and deliciously doesn't have to be complicated. I think one of the biggest aha moments, people think just because I know I've done some things in the cooking, they think I'm pumping out these fancy meals every night, which is literally the opposite. So a simple thing, grilling asparagus. Oh, you can grill asparagus? Yes. You can put asparagus in your air fryer. You can put broccoli and Brussels sprouts in your air fryer. So things can be so simple and streamlined and still super delicious. So just experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're getting your recipes from trusted sources. Because I know how disappointing it can be when you make something, you spend all that time doing something, and then you're like, oh, that isn't what I was envisioning. So use trusted recipes, and you will get there, and you'll be eating well.
Agreed. Thank you so much. And I would love to hear how people can find your cookbooks, your spice mixes. And I have to say really quick, so with Prep Dish, we're always trying to figure out ways, to make the healthy food taste delicious, but also be fast. And we have struggled over the years to figure out the seasoning thing and to not, we like to introduce new flavors and seasonings, but not have that ingredient list, even on a made from scratch recipe, be oh so long. So I was so thrilled to see all these spice mixes, and they definitely have my stamp of approval. So let people know where they can find those.
Thank you so much. And they can probably use my spices with your recipe.
Exactly.
I do that all the time. Yeah. So go to my website, so michelledudash.com has everything, my books, my link to my spice website, my Instagram, all of those things where I'm just offering lots of recipes and tools for you to make it all happen.
Well, thank you so much. And as always, we will have everything linked in the show notes. So look there to find everything. Thank you so much for coming on, Michelle.
Thank you, Allison. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Michelle, for coming on today's episode. I loved chatting about quick, healthy, flavorful meals and hearing all of your tips and tricks for making that happen. Make sure to check out her spice mix line. As I mentioned in the intro, I've tried them out. They really do make dinner time easy. And speaking of easy dinner time, if you haven't tried out our meal plans here at Prep Dish, I actually think the two can work really good in combo, but the meal plans are at prepdish.com/MPM if you want to have a 2-week free trial and give it a go, see how you like them. But it's a great way to kind of hit all those marks of tasty, healthy, but most importantly, quick and easy. I like how Michelle talked a lot in her episode about, at the end of the day, she's a busy mom. It needs to be simple and streamlined. And that's something we're always aiming here at Prep Dish is how do we make this easy, but also still have those marks of like flavorful and healthy and all of the things. So if you're looking for some help in making that happen, head to prepdish.com/MPM. That is all I have for this week's episode. I will be back again next Monday with another episode.